everyone is so different. And what one person wants out of their life is not what someone else wants out of their life. And whatever you want is beautiful. Whatever you want is exactly what you should have.
Welcome to the Beauty Boss Breakdown, unlocking secrets to salon business success one beauty pro at a time. Today we interview former hairstylist turned beauty business and mindset coach, Maila Snow. Sponsored by SalonRenter.com, a free resource for beauty pros to find salon booth and suite rentals near them. Let's dive in.
Perfect.
All right. Yeah, Maila, thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate it, and we're happy to be doing this.
I know.
Issues aside.
I know, right?
So Maila, I found you randomly on Instagram. I think you had shared, something that really resonated me as far as like a mindset post. You started in the beauty industry, but can you get started just by sharing with our users who you are and what you do, how kind of just your journey and how you got started from being a hairstylist to business mindset coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was doing hair for 14 years. I knew since I was a little kid that I wanted to be doing hair. I've always been super obsessed with the industry. But what ended up happening was a year and a half ago, I got pregnant with my son, and I just knew that I needed to be home with him. So I decided, let's see what else I could do, because, I live in California, so I can't just be a stay-at-home mom. So I decided, okay, let's put some of my other skills to use here. And since I am such a, very, very strong type A personality, ask my husband, I'm really good with organization and systems. And so I decided, let's try doing VA work for hairstylists. So I started doing that, and it just naturally turned into coaching. I was meeting with them every single week, and they would start coming to me with all of their problems about things, oh, I'm struggling with this with my client, or I'm trying to figure this out with my business, how I want to scale and grow, and all those kinds of things. And we would just sit and we'd talk about it and figure out what made sense for them, for their business and their lifestyle. And from there, I just really fell in love with the coaching aspect of it and decided okay, let's do this ethically. So I went and I got some certifications for it. And now here I am.
That's awesome. I think it's something that is truly valuable just in any business, but also especially the beauty industry. And we'll hint on some of the value that you bring. But can you tell us a little bit about, given your unique blend of skills, what primarily do beauticians, those in the industry, come to you for?
Specialization is helping beauty industry professionals figure out what exactly they want out of their lives and their business, and specifically how to heal from their past and how that is making it so that they can't have the things that they want in their future. And I do that using meditation, NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, and then ICF style coaching. So it's really me just helping my clients figuring out what makes sense for them. Everyone is so different, and what one person wants out of their life is not what someone else wants out of their life. And whatever you want is beautiful. Whatever you want is exactly what you should have. And we have so many things that we go through in our childhood and in our adolescence that condition us basically to not believe in ourselves and hold us back and sabotage us from having the life that we want to have. So I help them identify those things and break through them so that they can have the life that they want to have.
It must be very rewarding doing that type of work and seeing your clients blossom under the mentorship, or is it therapy? Would you classify it as therapy, kind of?
I would not call it therapy. I would say there are some aspects that are similar to therapy. therapy tends to be more of just like a talking it out type situation. I use techniques to go into your subconscious mind to figure out what it actually is that your subconscious mind is telling you and what your subconscious mind believes so that we can switch that, because your subconscious mind is the one that is ending up like sabotaging you basically, but your conscious mind is the driver. So if your conscious mind is telling your subconscious mind what to do all the time, eventually um, it will change your thought process.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like therapy, I wouldn't classify it as that, but therapy is more of like just like talking it out.
Mm.
Violet, that's amazing. And honestly, I think everyone, it's often overlooked, but honestly, everyone can use business coaching and sort of help identify issues in their past to move forward. I mean, that that's amazing. And do you have any tips, or I don't want to say tricks or tips, but any common exercises that you might be able to share with us that we might be able to try at home to get past some of those mental roadblocks?
The biggest thing that you can do for yourself, believe it or not, is journaling.
Journaling.
If you take the time to like, if you have something that keeps on replaying for you, like saying just something simple, I'm not good at social media. Start writing down why and really get into it. Take a couple days and go back to it and figure out what it is that you're actually struggling with it. Is it a fear of being seen? Is it you're feeling like you don't have enough knowledge? Why do you feel like you don't have enough knowledge? Why are you afraid of being seen? And just keep on digging into it day after day after day, and you'll figure out what that limiting belief is. You'll figure out why and the root cause for it. It's literally the simplest way to work through anything is just journaling it out. There's something so therapeutic about writing things down that helps just get all of that crap out of your body, and heal from it. Because you start to understand where it came from in the first place. Because something as simple as I'm not good at social media is actually something really deep. And we don't realize that. We're just going off of the surface level when it's really something that happened when you were like 8, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And honestly, it's just like giving me flashbacks and thinking through this in my mind, like, hey, what sort of limiting thoughts do I have? And, Cami and I talk about these sort of things all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a fantastic suggestion, journaling. Admittedly, one thing is the consistency, right? Like finding the time, whether it's a couple minutes a day to journal. Do you have any like tips around, trying to be consistent about it or?
Yeah, habit stacking. So what you
Okay.
do is if you have one thing that you do every single day, then attach the new habit that you want with that. So, like, say that you have coffee every morning or tea every morning, stack whatever habit you want with that. So, either before or after you make your coffee, you do that. I really wanted to start getting outside more. Now that I'm home with my son, I'm in the house all the time, and it's very different, than being able to go to work every day. And I was realizing that I was really missing just being outside, just breathing some fresh air, being in nature a little bit. So I decided every day after I made my coffee, I would take my dog out to go to the bathroom because my husband was doing that before he left for work before. So I said, I'm going to take on that job so that I could get outside every single day and just take some deep breaths and just be in nature and feel good. It's that simple. Just find something that you do every single day and just add it to it. Do that for 2 weeks until it feels good. It's just natural to you. And then you can add on another habit.
That's really
I
good advice because, I mean, journaling is something that I've picked up because I know how important it is. I've heard it before and how cathartic it can be.
Yes.
But then something will happen, like I'll be journaling and then I'll mess up writing something, and my handwriting alone can just send me into like, very OCD, but the habit stacking, that's very good advice. Now, speaking of habits, you have like a little booklet, a little freebie on your website, Wake Up to
Mhm.
Wellness. Um, do you have other habits or other routines that you try to stick to start your day off right?
Yeah, so my biggest thing that I try and encourage everyone to do is have their three non-negotiables every single morning. So that no matter what happens that day, as long as you have those three things that you did, you feel good that day. So for me, it's meditation, and then journaling, and then having like a quiet moment. So I make my coffee. Well, sorry. I meditate first before I even get out of bed. I have headphones next to my nightstand so that I do that before anything else. And it just starts my day off on such a good note. So I have my meditation practice that I do every morning, and then I wake up, I make my coffee, I journal, and then I take my dog out to the bathroom so I can get outside and breathe in that fresh air and have that. There's just so much like beauty in the stillness in the morning that I need to take the time to appreciate. So those are like the three things that I do, and I make sure that I tied it all to making my coffee every morning.
Interesting. So instead of, doing the what so many of us do, you get your phone, you scroll on the Instagram or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. You actually take a moment every single morning to meditate, get your head right, and that's how you start every single day. How, if you don't mind sharing, how long approximately is that process? That 5 minutes, 10 minutes? We know about meditation, but uh, we're very novice at it. So any tips and tricks would be very appreciated.
At this point, that whole process is pretty long. I typically do like roughly 20 to 30 minutes of meditation every morning, but I you can make it as long or as short as you want to do all of that. So it's a 5-minute meditation, and then I get up, I journal for 5 minutes, and then it's coffee and taking the dog out. It doesn't it,
So we're, yeah,
sorry.
sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
I was going to say it doesn't need to be the same amount of time every day. And I strongly advise like those three things, your three non negotiables in the morning, is something that is easy to do. So you can take 15 to 20 to 30 minutes to journal if you want to, but if you only have 5 minutes, great, you only have 5 minutes. And it's the same way with meditation. You can do a shorter one. I like guided meditations, so using different apps is super helpful with that. But a guided meditation, you can find ones as short as 3 minutes to do. And if you just have that ready to go the night before, so that it's just so easy for you to just wake up and do it, is the best way. Like just setting yourself up for success in any way you possibly can.
It really does help your mindset too. As Andrew mentioned, we familiar with meditation, but we're still, lots to learn and need to make it more of a habit. But it really does set your day up versus scrolling.
Mhm.
I notice very tangible difference where I wake up and I lay in bed and I scroll for an hour or something, 2 hours. It goes by so quickly versus even just 15 minutes of meditation. And I think people in our industry, uh, we're very used to go, 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 go all the time,
Mhm.
throughout the day, whether it's appointments back to back, whether it's waking up, grabbing an iced coffee and granola bar, and that's the only thing you're eating for the rest of the day.
Mhm.
So knowing your non-negotiables, as you said, and sticking to that for your mental health is so important because mental health is incredibly important because we take care of other people all
Mhm.
day. So I think sometimes we forget to put ourselves as a priority and take care of ourselves. So I know that's something, self-care that you also touch on a lot. Do you have any other tips for how to prioritize self-care throughout the day or, especially coming into this busy season of holidays and such?
I think it's really important to just be as intentional as it possible with everything that you do. Um, for me, when I was behind the chair, especially during the holidays, making sure that I took even just a minute in between clients to take some deep breaths, or just step outside for a moment. I mean, it's easier for me. I'm in California, right? So during the winter, I can easily just go outside and take a couple deep breaths, and I'm not freezing my butt off. But just like making sure that you're taking that time for yourself, even just a minute. Just 1 minute in between clients will make a difference over time. If you're just like taking some deep breaths, because deep breaths is how you're regulating your nervous system and how you are like you're taking deep belly breaths. You're making sure it's coming from your gut and not in your chest, is how you're getting more oxygen into your body, and it's how you're releasing any of that stress, any of that negative energy. So if you're able to just take a moment in between every single client to do that, it's going to set you up for so much more success. And just
Yeah,
yeah,
please go
so I
ahead.
was just
No,
going to say,
sorry.
just being really intentional about that. Even just marking off like those couple minutes in your calendar in between clients will make a difference.
And resetting between clients has to also be so important, because I know personally I started as a lash artist esthetician before moving into this, and clients really do put a lot on you emotionally in a service. You know, you're talking about everything from their relationships, to their job, to the stress of their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And you had mentioned in your post before, which I agree with, that I think a lot of people in our industry are very empathetic.
Yeah.
So it's easy to just carry that energy,
Mm-hmm.
client after client, and without taking the time to kind of reset. Breath work, I know you're very advocate
Mm-hmm.
for. Uh, it can just really weigh you down and really make you not love what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing. So I definitely resetting between clients I can feel is very important.
I've also heard, and again, I'm not an expert on this subject, but I have heard and I've tried to incorporate similar things, not only in between clients. I don't work behind the chair, so I can't relate to that experience, but in between even activities, right? When you get home after a long day of being behind the chair, just taking a minute inside the car and taking like a quick deep breath and say, who am I? Who do I want to be when I get home? I mean, who am I to my kids? Who am I
Yeah.
to my partner? And just taking that minute to say, this is the energy I now need to reset the energy and go in different. So that's something that I've tried working on, but admittedly, again, still need constant reminders and help with. And like you said, being intentional about it, blocking it out, and you could even almost habit stack that. Like
Yeah.
every time you get in the car, like, hey, take a minute or something along those lines. But I love that. I think that's great advice. Thank you, Mila.
You absolutely could
You
habit
know,
stack that. That's a great idea. Knowing like once I get in my car, like, okay, this is the time that I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to be able to get that energy out, and knowing how you want to show up for your family afterward is huge.
now I know, Mila, you mentioned, we already kind of touched on like limiting beliefs. You had given us the example of social media, which I absolutely can identify with. I all the time I'm attempting to do the social media, which is pretty important in our industry or just any business. It kind of comes with the game. You got to do it. But what are some other common limiting beliefs or mindset blocks that you help professionals with, and do you have any personal examples of things that you've maybe struggled through with the past, and any tips to get through that?
I think the biggest like issue that majority of hairstylists have, because we're such people pleasers, it's our biggest limiting belief is like this needing to be accepted and needing to be loved. And that's why we're always saying yes. It's why we're always emotionally discounting, because we're seeking for acceptance and love from other people instead of giving it to ourselves. I my biggest limiting belief my entire life was feeling like I wasn't enough. So I was always trying with anything that I was doing to fill that, to make myself feel like, okay, look at all these things that I'm doing, look at all these things that I'm giving, so that I can have like the love and the appreciation and the what's the word I'm looking for? like for people to see me, basically, for people to see what I was doing and see me as a person. And that comes down to those first 7 years of your life. Something happened in those first 7 years of your life when you were such a sponge and forming all of your values that made you feel like you weren't enough, like you needed love and that you needed to seek that from other people instead of giving it to yourself. And that will come back to coaching and journaling and figuring out where that came from, where that started, and what you need to do for yourself in order to fill that void for yourself. Because you're never going to feel good, you're never going to feel like enough until you're able to give that to yourself. If you're constantly seeking that from other people, it's never going to get better.
Love that. Absolutely
Yeah.
love that.
It's funny you mentioned emotionally discounting because I used to do that all the time.
Yeah.
And it's hard because you form these relationships with your
Yes.
clients, and people pleasing. Absolutely. I understand that as well. So,
From
oh, go ahead.
so in that sort of same vein, emotionally discounting, do you have any advice on setting boundaries with clients? Because I know, again, I'm not from this industry, but seeing Cami and we'd have these conversations after her work, again, sort of some of these topics came up. So what are some ways you generally tell your clients or guide your clients on setting up boundaries to not, you know, not let them get walked over or emotionally discount, as you just said?
I and do it themselves. I would show them how to do it. If they had any questions, I was always there for them through email only. I didn't have my clients text me. Um, and that made it a lot easier because they knew exactly how much the price was of everything. And then always talking about it at the beginning of the appointment. Okay, here's what we talked about. You want to do X, Y, and Z. This is the ballpark pricing for that. So then if it's different than what they booked for and what they saw on your booking software, then they have that in mind before you even start the process. But it comes down to feeling confident in yourself, feeling confident in your services and your pricing and what you're giving to your client to be able to actually stick to your price and not emotionally discounting it for sure. It's hard. It's like, I feel like that is like the hardest thing to do out of like everything in our industry. Like you can learn how to do balayage, you can learn how to laminate brows, like you can learn all of that stuff, the hardest techniques, but the emotional discounting and setting boundaries is the hardest part of our industry.
And that has to go back to the whole people
Mm-hmm.
pleasing thing, probably.
Absolutely. It goes back to people pleasing for sure because you're worried about someone leaving you. You're worried about people
Mhm.
liking you. You're worried about people sticking with your business, even if they're not the right fit for you.
Yeah, and that can be a hard lesson to learn as well, is learning to be okay with clients not coming back if you're not a good fit.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Because it's so easy to take it personally.
Absolutely. It's so personal and it's it's so hard to separate the two because we get so immersed in our business and thinking that we are the same, that it's one thing and it's not. You are not your business. And
Mhm.
separating those things and understanding like your clients, while they may love you, you're still providing a service for them. You're not a family member, you're not blood related to them. So if something's not working out anymore, they're just going to leave. They're not going to like have a conversation with you about it and try and fix it most of the time, right? Like you go get your nails done somewhere, they do it wrong, you don't go back. You're not going to be like, "Hey, I really didn't like that you made my thumbnail like a little too rounded." you know, they're just not going to go back,
Yeah.
and that's okay. That means that they're not the right fit for you, and there's so many people in this world and in this country that you will find other clients.
That are better fits for you. And ultimately, isn't that who we want, is to build our book with clients that
Yes.
know us and respect us and our boundaries and policies
Mhm.
and just are the A+ clients.
Exactly. Because there's the right client for every single person. And you just need to find yours. And there's nothing wrong with having that turnover until you find them.
Do you guide your clients on, maybe ever firing or identifying those specific types of clients that they really want and sort of help them get to a book of business of predominantly those clients?
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a client actually right now who we just switched out all of her systems within her business, and she completely rebranded her business, and she's in a new space and everything. And I told her before we started, I said, you will get a lot of clients who are going to leave, and you're going to get scared. You're going to freak out a little bit about it. But the amount of new client requests that you're going to get after that is going to be insane, and you're not even going to know what to do with yourself, because she was getting so clear on her boundaries and what she wanted in her chair, the type of person that she wanted in her chair, and her messaging. And now I think she's getting like a minimum of 5 new guest requests a week. Yeah,
Wow,
it's crazy.
that's
I'm
amazing.
always messaging her like, "Hey, you got another new guest request you need to look at." Like, it's crazy. She's doing so well.
That's amazing, and that came because obviously your help, your coaching, your experience, but really honing in on the message and identifying the type of client that she really
Mhm.
wants. Because of course, just like in many industries, you just say yes to everyone.
Yes.
But when you say yes to everyone, you can't specify and really hone in on the person that you want. And so by identifying that, you've helped her rebrand her business, and she's doing fantastically.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, what it comes down to is if you're saying yes to everything, then you're also saying yes to being walked all over. Those people don't
Yeah.
respect you. They don't, because you're saying yes to whatever they want. And that's not how
Yeah.
you want to live your life. That no one deserves that. So, yeah.
No, you also don't want to build up like a clientele in that base. I think for new stylists starting out, I know I felt this way. Like I had to say
Mhm.
yes to everybody because I was trying to build my book. But in reality, you're building your book with people that don't respect you, and it's just gonna wear and tear on your mental health and business long
For
run.
sure. And that's how we were taught, right? Like, I don't know how long you've been in the industry, but 14 years ago, it was you start out as a generalist and you say yes to everything. And that's just your life. If you're going to stay from 8 in the morning to 9 o'clock at night, that's just how it goes, because you're building your books. And that's toxic. You're just
Mm.
like trying to set yourself up for failure and for burnout.
And something that you had posted, I believe I saw that I really appreciated you posting because I'd never heard someone really kind of call it out before is all these posts that says like, oh, so and so many days until the end of the year. You better do this or you better you better hustle. And again, going back to how hustle culture is pushed a lot in business and in this industry, but you had written a post saying like kind of just to block out that noise and what is right for other people might not be right for you. And I thought that was so important because I've seen those
Mhm.
posts and I see those and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
crap, there is only so and so many days till the end of the year. What were my goals? How, like, I need to push. I'm not doing enough. I'm not growing fast enough. And while lighting a fire under your butt can be maybe productive in some ways, it can also just be so detrimental to your growth to be comparing yourself to where others are in their journey, feeling like you're not doing enough, maybe not stopping to take time to realize what you've already done. So, so something that I know you help with is goal setting and helping your clients realize what their personal goals are, not just what everybody else is doing, and being authentic to yourself. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit and how you help people realize what their goals are, what's right for them versus what everybody else is doing?
The biggest thing I ask my clients about anytime they want to make a decision, I ask them, where do you feel it in your body? When you've decided, like, okay, I want to do this, do you feel it in your head, in your throat, in your chest, or in your gut? If it's not in your gut, don't do it. Everything else is just I'm supposed to, or I need to, or this is what everyone else is doing. It's not worth it. It's not worth your time because it's not your intuition. It's not your gut and your true self telling you that it's right, is basically what it is. So that is like the number one question that I end up asking my clients when we're talking about goal setting is, where do you feel it in your body? Because your body will always tell you where you're supposed to go and what you're supposed to be doing. And we let our minds get in the way of that 99% of the time. So,
Yeah, and seeing what everybody else is doing. This person's opening up a brand new mega salon. This person's going into education and doing, that might not be right for you. And
yeah.
ultimately, that's not a goal worth working towards if it's not gonna, satisfy your soul.
And we're told all the time that that's like always the what's next, right? Is opening a salon or being an educator. That's not right for everyone, and that's okay. Like, not every,
Or it could be stopping behind the chair and going into completely different business.
yeah, it could be that. It could be starting a second venture. It could, like, there's so many different things. It could be raising your prices, working less, and traveling more, starting to do a new hobby. Like, there's so many other things that you can be doing that is scaling, but it's not in the traditional sense. But it makes you happy, and that's all that matters. It's your life. No one else is living it.
Yeah. For goal setting, though, I know you've mentioned before kind of different
Mm-hmm.
strategies for goal setting. Can you explain a little bit about that? Like you mentioned SMART goals, OKRs, that type of thing.
Yeah, there are so many different goal setting strategies that you can go with. I personally like SMART goals the most. SMART goals are, I mean, like,
Need a cheat
no.
sheet. I always forget exactly what they are too.
I'm the worst with that. Like, it's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time based. Yes. Those are the ones that I typically like to go through. And I literally do. I have to pull up the sheet of it every single time I do it, even though I do it with like all my goals. I still need to pull it up. But that's my favorite one to go with because you're being as clear as possible. With my clients, I do typically do SMART goals. And then when they tell me how they want to break it out, like I like to break it out with them annual goals, quarterly goals, monthly goals, and then weekly goals. And then when we're going through the weekly goals, I typically take off like half of the things that they want to do that week because we are always like thinking that we can do way more than we can actually do, or we're overworking ourselves way too much. So I really do get down into like the nitty gritty with my clients to make sure that they're not taking on too much to where they can't have a life. Because what's the point of doing all these things if you can't enjoy your life, right? So I always like
Exactly.
take off half.
I love that as well, and that's something that I've also tried implementing. I'd say in the last 8 months or so. With again, consistency is still something I'm working on, but setting up, hey, what do I want to achieve this year, and then this quarter, this month, and this week, and all those things. If you get them flowing in the right direction, because too many times we set up daily goals and we're being reactive. We're saying, hey, this is all the things I have to do today. Oh, I have to take the kids here, do X, Y, and Z, and you forget to be proactive.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you actually set up those quarterly goals and you say, this is how I'm going to achieve this quarterly goal on a weekly
Mm-hmm.
basis and a monthly basis, I think that's so powerful. And I've definitely noticed a lot of changes in my productivity levels since implementing something like that. So I think that's incredible, and I completely agree.
I always have a totally unrealistic goal setting for my day. I'll start off writing like okay, pick 3 things, right? 3 things that you have to get done today. And then I'll just keep writing. And then my goal is like for that day, like 10 things long. And I'll get overwhelmed and just won't do any of
Yeah.
it. So that's probably not very productive. But then I feel like I'm not doing enough. But
Hmm.
you know,
When I used to be like that all the time. And I would write down like 15 things to get done for the day. And of course, I'd only end up doing like two. And then I'd be so down on myself because I didn't do anything. And I'm just like, ugh, I suck. Like, I needed to get all these things done, and I barely even got to half of them. So, what my therapist at the time actually told me to do was to start writing down at the end of the day everything I did do, every single little thing that I did do that day, and start like celebrating myself for it. And it completely changed my mindset on how much I was actually doing. Because then I started to celebrate myself for even like the littlest things, you know, like it was at the time, he was my boyfriend, but I'd say like, oh, I spent 15 minutes just connecting with Ryan. And before, it wasn't like that big of a deal for me, you know? And then like finally really realizing like, oh, I did spend that time with him, and that was super important. You know, you're just like, you're realizing how much value you actually are bringing to yourself, to your life, and to other people
To celebrate the little wins every day. And
every day.
then when you change the mindset, like I didn't achieve these things, into here's all the things I did achieve, even if they're not huge goals, but even every little thing. And you flip your mindset into saying, I did a lot today. And, I still have work to do, but I still achieved a lot of things. So instead of, you know, mourning losses, so to speak, you're celebrating the little
Yeah,
wins.
exactly.
That makes a ton of sense. Makes a ton
that
of sense.
also that also helps, I'm sure, because I know I try to stop and think about this as well when I look at other people and I look at where they are. Um, Looking at maybe you're not necessarily where you thought you would be in your career, but look at what you've achieved so
Mm-hmm.
far. Just remembering to not only celebrating the little wins daily, but celebrating the wins over the past several months or from where you started. That can be so easily overlooked. And just focusing on like the negative, oh, I'm not there yet. They're doing all of this. But, you know, we're in our own little race.
Mm-hmm.
We have to remember, by ourselves. So,
Yeah, and I think a lot of people forget that where that person that is doing like all these crazy things started is not where you started. So
mm-hmm.
they had a completely different situation, a completely different life, a completely different set of limiting beliefs that you do not have. So how can you actually measure yourself against them when they had a completely different circumstance than you did? When you're being like fully practical about it, right? When we start taking the feelings out of it and just analyzing the actual facts of the situation, that also really helps.
Yeah. And writing them down so you
Mm-hmm.
actually
See them.
see.
Yeah.
'Cause yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, there's something we like to ask all the people that we interview, such as yourself. We we ask if there's any sort of story or any sort of situation where maybe you made a mistake or we call it beauty boss meltdown story because we all have those, right? I've had plenty where you accidentally do something, it's a hard lesson to learn, and maybe you had a little meltdown, but you learned from it. Do you have anything that comes to mind? If not, no worries, but just curious.
I have one. It's definitely not like funny. It's actually kind of a sad one, but um,
No, if you don't mind sharing.
yeah, I think it's helpful for people actually, especially when you're first starting out. Um, I had I had just started working in a new area, and I had this lady come in, and I could tell that she wasn't super thrilled to have me do her hair in the first place, but I decided to go through with the service anyway because I was young and thought like, well, I have to do it. I have to make money. I have to build my clientele. So I did her hair, and she came back like I think two days later, to complain about her color service that I did. And she actually pulled me outside, which was my first mistake. She wanted to take me outside to have a conversation about it so she could scream at me.
Oh gosh.
And I kind of just like let her say her piece, and she's going through all of this about how much she hates her hair and how much I ruined it. And then she said, and I'll never forget this, and it makes me so sad for her. She said, I hate myself in that conversation. And that made me realize like how much of what we do as hairstylists is making someone feel good about themselves and really not about our technical skills. Because she didn't have a good view of herself, nothing that I did was going to make her happy anyway. So I needed to just take myself out of the situation, basically, because there wasn't anything that I could have done. And it was all about the way that she saw herself. And it made me so sad. And it still makes me so sad because no one deserves to feel that way about themselves. But it's also really helpful for stylists, especially new ones coming into the industry, to remember majority of the time, if someone doesn't like their hair, it's not normally about you. If you did your job correctly, it's because they are struggling with something with themselves.
Yeah, that can be really difficult. That's a whole different conversation, is dealing with difficult clients or clients that maybe leave you a bad review, because it is so personal. You know, you can't tell me that you don't take that to heart in some degree, you know, without really learning to not
Yeah.
bring it home and bring it into your, you know, personal life. But it's so important to, as you mentioned before, reset between
Mm-hmm.
clients, not take it personally. If there's anything that you can take from the situation and learn and grow from. But as you said, you know, some people, they're, as with all of us, we have our own stuff that we're dealing with.
Yeah, for sure. Don't get me wrong. After she left, I went into the back and cried. Like, I would,
Which can be
yeah.
cathartic,
Oh,
though.
for sure. Right.
There's nothing wrong with crying.
Crying is actually so good for you. But
Yes.
yeah, I definitely went into the back and cried. And it took me a little while for it to like really click that that's what the problem was. But after I realized that that's what it was, it's like, oh, okay. Like I can move past this. Like it's okay, you know? But I
Yeah.
definitely cried.
Oh, I've been
Oh,
there,
yeah.
you know, going to the back and crying,
Oh,
trust
yeah.
me.
We've all been there, right? Like,
I just we like asking uh people this, because I think it's important to, as we were talking about before, realize that we all, in our business journey, we all have our own struggles. In personal life, we all have our own struggles. We're all coming from someplace different. We're all trying to overcome something.
mm-hmm.
And just remembering that the next time I compare myself to somebody else, or where I am versus them. So thank you for sharing. I appreciate you sharing that little tidbit. But if you had one piece of advice for someone who's just starting out in the beauty industry, or maybe just starting becoming their own
Mm-hmm.
boss, what advice would you give to them?
I would tell them to be intentional from the very beginning. Figure out what your values are as a person and within your business, and make sure that you're intentional about all of that and taking care of yourself. Being intentional is like the biggest thing that you can do for yourself in every aspect of your life, but especially in your business.
Andrew, do you have any other questions for Mila?
Absolutely, Mila. This has been awesome. I really appreciate it. I want to be cognizant of your time here. Just a couple follow-up
Yeah.
questions, or one really. Who is your ideal client? We've talked about how you help your clients identify their clients. If you had to pick, your ideal client persona, so to speak, who would that be?
I love anyone within the beauty industry. They don't have to necessarily be hairstylists. But my person, this is probably going to sound crazy, but someone who is struggling with anxiety and who does have struggles from their childhood that they need to work through. I really, really love helping people heal from their past and make a beautiful career for themselves.
Love it, and I appreciate you sharing that. And Cami said you have a free workbook that you have on your website.
Yeah.
Can you just tell us a little bit more about that for any of our listeners who might want to check it
Yeah,
out?
absolutely. So it's Wake Up to Wellness. And what it's doing is helping you figure out what exactly you want for your morning routine to set you up for success for the day. So it just
I love
works
that.
you through
And
all of that.
fantastic. And setting up, just like we talked about, setting up, you win the morning, you win the day, and like just getting that situated, I think can just align your life. And it's always a work in progress,
For
but
sure.
having your non-negotiables. And so that's fantastic. And I appreciate you sharing it. And where can people get in touch with you, Maila?
You can find me on Instagram at Maila Snow, Maila Snow. And my email is also Maila@mailasnow.com. And my website is Maila Snow. Super easy.
Easy enough.
No one has my name, so it's perfect.
Well, Maila, thank you so much. This has been an awesome interview. Really appreciate you sharing, so many tips, so many useful nuggets of knowledge there, in particular from mindset, energy, and helping beauty practitioners across the whole industry with a lot of things that are often overlooked and not talked about often enough. So you've been awesome. Really, really appreciate the time today.
It was so wonderful meeting you guys. Thank you so much for having me on. This was so much fun. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. We want to definitely stay in
Yeah,
contact with you. I'm sure I'll have more questions for you
absolutely.
later on. We really appreciate your expertise on this.
Absolutely. I'm always happy to answer questions. So if there's anything ever, please reach out. I'm happy to help.
Thank you, Milo. It was so nice
All right.
talking with
So
you.
nice to talk to you too. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good
You
weekend.
too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.